Come on, baby.
Sharp, that's when the signal shines in. Got the mic set up and the camera spin. Grab a coffee, pull up your chair, join the drive. Cause the only place to be on a Monday night at 9 is right here, alive. We're drilling down deep on the legend of fur, the biggest mystery ever did stir. It's Sasquatch Watch Radio. Tune into the same with Gary Kendrick hosting with King. He's heard the howls, he's caught the form's trace, a true seeker leading the chase. Something stirs out in the shadowy wood. Let's uncover it together, just like we should. The team is geared up, the map is laid clear. We bring expert voices where the facts appear. We feature top names on this digital plane, from Meldrum's big theories to Strange Rich Strain. With Lyle Blackburn and Scott Violet online, we chase the elusive one sighting at a time. It's Sasquatch Watch Radio. Tune into the screen with Gary Kendrick, host of the scene. He's heard the howls, he's seen the dark form, a true eyewitness leading the storm. Something is lurking out in the dark wood. Let's find it together, just like we should. We give you the legends, the truth laid raw, and a unique track for the tale of the law. So subscribe to the channel, heed the lead. We're planting knowledge, pulling up the weed. Yeah, Monday night, 9 Eastern, YouTube Live. Sasquatch Watch Radio, where the quest thrives.
Hey, everybody. It's Monday night, May the 11th. Got a great guest on tonight, Mr. Rick Reles. Rick is a BFRO investigator currently living in Western North Carolina. He's a retired businessman who's traveled the world frequently. Rick is also a recording guy. He has recorded a song called The Wood Booger Walk. Rick is a BFRO investigator with a lot of time involved in investigations. He's led several investigations, been on several investigations. And Rick has written a book. It's in its 4th edition right now, and I believe he said he's working on the 5th coming out soon. And it is the Field Guide to Bigfoot Stick Structures. So let's go ahead and bring Rick on, and we're going to get it started. Hello, Rick.
Hi, Gary. Hey, Gary. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. I met Rick a couple of weeks ago in Townsend, Tennessee, at the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival. That's one of the best times I've had in a long time. I like going to that particular festival. My wife even enjoys it, and we have a good time. Rick, let's get straight into it. In 2010, I believe it was, in Wisconsin, you had a sighting. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your sighting?
Well, I wasn't interested in Bigfoot, like researching it, or hadn't spent a lot of time thinking about it really. But I saw something. I was with a business associate. We saw something cross the road. There were 2 lanes on each side of grass median in the middle, rural part of Wisconsin, rural highway, if you will. And this thing came out of the woods on the left, crossed the 2 lanes on the other side, crossed the grass median, went in front of us. Then I watched it hurdle a fence. So, a fencing along the side of the road that it went over, not, like a 4-legged creature. That's what struck me. It hurdled the thing. And it was a reddish brown, like an auburn brown color. And the 2 of us didn't know what it was. Now, my business associate friend kind of went on and dismissed it later. And we were thinking, well, what was it? What did we see? Because it was, in November between 4 and 4:30, kind of a dreary day. But we just, we thought maybe moose. And I spent a lot of time looking at moose and elk in that part of the world. There's none. And I couldn't get over that it was bipedal in nature, that it looked like it was humanoid, if you will. So I stuck with that and really, dug into it, did a lot of online research, found the BFRO, started going to expeditions. And, here you go. It's 16 years later, I'm an investigator. I lead expeditions. I've either led or been on probably 3-4 dozen of them. Everywhere from British Columbia to Florida, lots of places, and I've had a lot of experiences. I would call that first one a Class A sighting. I know it was definitely not a human, and it wasn't a bear. And I've had a couple others since.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I know you live in Western North Carolina, which, in my opinion, I live in the southwestern part of the state of Virginia. I live right on the Kentucky border.
Mm-hmm.
We are in a really good spot for Sasquatch. I had my sighting right here, probably less than a half mile from my house.
Right.
And Western North Carolina, it's really similar terrain. I'm not that far from Western North Carolina. Really similar terrain, really hilly, forested. When you're working on a research area, what do you look for in a research area? What brings you to think, hey, this is a good place for Sasquatch?
So that's a great question, and I don't think anybody's asked me that really, at least not that way. We do. First of all, we're going to look and see if there's a number of reports that have been verified over the years in that area, or if we have a lot of reports coming in a particular county, particular area, and so we'll dot those on a map. That's a way to get started. But we look for, quite honestly, we're looking for waterways, confluence where different tributaries and things come into a river, or the terrain slopes downhill into the hollers around rivers. And a lot of it turns out to be areas, streams and things, fishing streams where you get a lot of fishermen. Sometimes because of the deer, we look at where the deer moves also. That's another, so where there's a lot of deer activity, because these things will hunt deer, where there's water, ample water supplies. We get hollers, swamps, places they can raise kids, places they can, because you can't think of Bigfoot like it's a solo creature. There's one of them out in the Pacific Northwest wandering around in the rainforest, or Northern California by itself. You got to forget that. I, on the advice of a good friend of mine who's Native American, you should always look at these things in terms of tribes, clans, social units, order. They help themselves out. They help themselves survive. I think they home together. They travel together. They probably hunt. They definitely look out for each other, in a sentry type thing into an area. But you want to look in terms of habitation, bigger areas that they can be, where they have a chance to, where people don't go, too. But they'll come out of those areas and they will access around where, people are more and more often. Now people are spreading out too. So, Gary, we're spreading out into their territory. There's more people, whether it's the United States or other parts of the world, there's more people spreading out. And so that's one of the reasons you're getting more sightings.
Yeah. I know, like in my own personal research, the things that I look for, waterways is number one.
Yep.
There has to be some type of permanent source of water. Not, we have these things, and I'm sure you probably heard in North Carolina, a wet weather spring. You can't have a wet weather spring where you have water sometimes and none other times. Another thing that I look for And it's kind of, I'm an old Marine, so I look for the cover, concealment, food sources.
Right.
Can it be hidden? Can it stay hidden? Is there enough food there to sustain it? And if you've
Right.
got, pretty much those elements, I think just about anywhere in the U.S., if you have the land for it, that's a
Right.
good place to start looking. And I'm going to be honest with you, the history of reports is wonderful. The history of reports is wonderful.
Yep.
Like here in my own hometown, I think there's 2 sightings reported on the BFRO investigation site, and that's it.
Right.
But the habitation is here. I see a lot of signs, throughout the county where I live at. I found a footprint last year with my 8-year-old nephew. That was like the highlight of his summer, where he found a Bigfoot track. But yeah, it's interesting. It's hard to really nail down. You're not going to step out in the woods and, I hate to say this, but it's not like on TV. You're not going to step out in the woods and immediately have Bigfoot activity.
Right. Right.
That's 90% of investigation, like I said before, is like 2 guys sitting in chairs talking and waiting for something to happen.
Right. 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 Right.
We got a question here. Thomas Stingberg wants to know about your sighting. November, was it snowing yet?
No, it was not snowing yet. It was dreary. You get a lot of November and April in Wisconsin, especially along the shore. It's very gray, very dreary, and it was one of those type of days. So no, it was not snowing yet. But when I was up there, I investigated for the BFRO. I investigated reports for 2/3 of Wisconsin, northern part, and so I had reports of people, finding tracks in the snow and that sort of thing too. So, and I had activity getting out. I had a research area, and so I had activity in the winter out in the snow. So if that's where your questions are coming from, they're active in the winter too. I do think they move about. Do they migrate with repetition, area to area? I don't know, but they're active in the winter too.
On the thoughts of migration too, I kind of have something that I work with. I think Sasquatch has, like every animal, they have a home range. And I'm just going to say, Sasquatch probably has a huge, what they would consider a home range, that they move around through different parts of the year. So it would look like they are migrating. And then too, with that being said too, I think there are circumstances where you will have one that migrates, or if something happens, like you said, you have a large population of people that move in, deforestation, food sources dry up or whatever, they will migrate. But, we've got documented proof of big cats that have moved 600, 700, 800 miles across several states. And, these are collared animals, and they know where they came from and everything. So, yeah, it's not out of the realm of possibility that they move around quite a bit.
Right. Well, and to your point, I think it's a very good point. They probably, could take up a lot. I mean, if you ever see, you've seen them, I've seen them, they move fast, and an animal, it's an apex predator or creature. And I don't think animal as much. They're almost like, I sort of agree with the Native American look at this that says they're forest people. But if they're in social order and they travel as a unit and they're as big and strong as they are, they could probably cover a lot of ground, a lot of territory, and probably pretty quick.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they go from station to station where there's resources. So we're in agreement where there's water, there's, ponds. I've got a couple of habituation sites I deal with, and they have acreage with ponds, big waterways in the woods and ravines they can move up and down through. And it seems like we have different ones visiting there. So, I think they can go from station to station, just like we go from rest stop to rest stop out there.
Oh, yeah. And, that kind of brings up a good point. I'm part Native American myself. I'm a Shawnee and Cherokee I'm a quarter Shawnee and Cherokee on my dad's side.
Okay.
I'm a quarter Cherokee on my mother's side. But according to governmental math, I'll never be half. So, but, it's fascinating. I'm an animal guy. And I get stuck between Sasquatch being some type of primate and Sasquatch being some type of relic human.
Right.
And I get tore up between those because on the one hand, I don't really see human intelligence. I don't see specific tool making. And when I say tool making, I don't mean picking up a stick and using it to do something with. I'm talking about specifically picking up something and reshaping it for a purpose. That would be tool making.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never really heard anything about fire usage or anything like that. So I'm kind of on the fence between those two, and I really have a hard time getting around them. What's your thoughts? I know you mentioned the forest people, but
yeah. So I wouldn't disagree with you that there's characteristics that are human-like and ones that are creature-like, and it's hard to explain the making tools, fashioning tools type of thing. Why wouldn't they do that? But I'd counter that with they have abilities that they just aren't abilities that we know creatures or humans to have too. So if you have access to those abilities, maybe you don't need the tools. I don't know. Yeah, I a lot of times will tell people who are impressed, I think it's a physical being with paranormal abilities. And we have, there are, if you research this and been out there, there are an awful lot of things that are odd that go on with these things that can't be explained. I look at it like it's all evidence, whether it's physical evidence, a cast of footprint, got dermal ridges on it. You can see the mid-tarsal break, and you can take that home. It's 18 inches long. You know what it is. I'm okay. That's evidence. I'm also okay that, some weird stuff happens when you're out researching these things and you see eyes and illuminating in the woods, or your electronic equipment goes out, or you hear a word or two in your mind. That stuff that happens too. So I'm just kind of okay with it all. It's all evidence. I don't want to fall into one camp. It's this or it's that. And you get a lot of people out there that have been at this a while that do. And I think you got to stay kind of open-minded.
Yeah, and that's a really important thing too. And I stress this a lot on the show too. Like I said, I'm an animal guy. It's either, like I said, a primate or some type of primitive human. And with that being said, I am open enough that I will listen to whatever your encounter is.
Right.
You can talk about portals. You can talk about cloaking. Now, what I'm going to do is in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, okay, let's try to come up with a physical explanation. If I can come up with a physical explanation, it makes a lot more sense. But now I can't take anything away from your sighting because I was not there. I have to take what you say at face value. So like you said, it's all evidence.
Right.
And that's one of the main purposes of the show is I want to bring the evidence out, bring it out to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to Billy before we come on, and I had an exchange with a guy on a Facebook group the other day, and I shouldn't have. But he told me that Bigfoot doesn't exist. It's time to grow up. Now, with that being said, he kind of triggered me, so I went on a little rant. But anyway, all of the
you've had an experience. You've seen this creatures. So then someone says what they say. It's hard to, just they're not going to change. So you have to ask yourself, is it worth the argument? I mentioned to you when I saw you in Townsend that in 2018 I saw one near Hungry Mother State Park.
Yeah.
Okay. In
that is a really squatchy place.
Yeah. And historically it has been. And I was in there with a group that we had, and we had no NDAs in that group. It's East Coast Expedition Group. But we were in there for several days, and flat out, I had 2 other people with me. There were 5 of us in a group, and 3 of us saw this thing. And
that's
8.
Isn't that Charles Kimbrough's group?
Yeah, Charles group.
Yeah, we had him on the show. That's KimbroughAudio.com.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, no. Charles is a great guy. He's got a cool book too that he wrote on this subject, and borrowed some of his stuff over the years that I use in presentations. He's a great guy. But I've been out in the woods with Charles a number of times. Wonderful researcher, really good technically. But that group, and 3 of us, one encounter one night, saw one come down a ravine above us, and we saw the thing, and it had to be 8-9 foot tall and black, and I could see the muscles activate, and it moved. It came down, the tree hopped, stopped, and then ran right across in front of us across the ravine. And I could see the muscles activate, the head movement, the arms, the legs. It was physically immensely strong, and it had that glide pattern to it. but 3 of us saw that we're looking at this thing. Okay. We went back and measured next day, and that's how I know I was 8-9 foot tall, because we put our tallest person up there and we sculpted out based on where we saw the trees that came down and everything. But nobody can take that away from me. So your friend, who you were debating with or going back and forth with the other day, said, put it out of your head, it's not real. Hey, I saw it, and 2 other people saw it. We had a recording of us while we saw that. You should hear us talking about it. I mean, it's fascinating if you record. Bringing a recorder with you is always best practice in research, but to hear yourself, if you have an encounter or several of what you're saying while it's going on afterwards and listening to it, I listen to that over and over, is incredible, because it's hard. You can hear us trying to process what we're seeing. How could that be so big? Oh my God, how to move so fast, that kind of stuff.
And that's a good point too, because not only do you have your thoughts at the time or whatever, but you have a permanent record of the sighting. You can, if you're sitting down and you're working on it and things, my sighting was 26 years ago, 20 years ago, 2006, 20 years ago. And some things are kind of hazy, but there are certain things that just like stick out in my mind.
Right.
And the gate is one of them, which we'll talk about shortly, but, and that's a permanent record. You have,
right.
Oh my God, it's so tall. You can go back and hear it all. That's good. Got another question from Mr. Steenberg here. Rick, how many sightings have you had?
Well, I mentioned the one in 2010. I had another, and the BFRO classifies A, B, and C type sightings. So A is, as I related earlier, it's clearly not a human or a bear. You could know, but scale, immense scale beyond that. The class B means a footprint that you got, or maybe you saw it or heard a recording of it, a knock or a whoop or a howl. You got a recording. You're having some type of encounter, but you don't have that physical, actual, seeing of it that confirms. So I've had 3 class A. I've had multiple class B. I had one peeking around a tree and I could see the eye shine of it. And I said just a couple of weeks ago in Southeast Tennessee, I don't know where, you could see the figures across a dry creek bed where a number I was looking at, and we could see the dark shadows of those figures and the white eyes, but the silhouette of the head. I wouldn't call that a class A, but I mean, we saw these things peeking through the mountain laurel. We had 45 minutes of engagement with these things, with some of the most intense and brightest eye shine, eye glow, call it whatever you want, but it was self-emanating from their head, and it was massive, the size of baseballs. And I watched this. I would call that a class B, but that's an encounter. No one could take that away from me. I had one in Colorado that I saw at 90 feet. 2 other people saw it with me also. It was an expedition. And we watched, it was about 6.5 foot tall brown. And it went into, I've told the story before, but it went into the moving like a second baseman, or a shortstop side to side kind of thing. They saw me kind of thing. But we saw it, and then it shot off the trail behind us, but it was right behind us. And we had other activity. I've learned with these things, if you're being distracted, you're looking here, they've got to look over there, because they will act as a group and get you to not, if you're onto them, you think they're in a place, they will get you to look the other way. They'll distract. And I think a lot of the mimicry that you hear, a lot of the animal sounds and whoops and the whistles and all that kind of thing that goes on, that's, controlling your attention.
I agree. That's a really good point. And I know I'd heard in one encounter that you had, there was a light orb that you saw.
Yes.
And you look behind you. You said, that's distraction. And you look behind you and actually saw the creature behind you.
Yep. Yes.
I wish I would have known that 13 years ago. We had a property that we investigated on that we had the light phenomenon every night. And literally we would all be in different areas. It was a big group. We probably had, at one time, I'd say we probably had about 30 people there investigating.
Okay.
And we was split up in all these different areas, and everybody saw these lights, and it was different for everybody. And, I wish I'd have known that then. We probably could have, got a lot more evidence than what we got.
Yeah.
That particular property, I'm just going to tell you, that's probably the hottest spot I have ever been in.
Really?
And we had activity. Yeah, we had activity every night. with
No kidding.
outfill activity every night. Yeah.
So,
But I like
maybe
the thoughts on that, the distraction, because I think, no, go ahead, Rick. I'm sorry.
no, I was going to say, do you think that in that area there's a group or a clan, or in that area it could be big, but probably they frequent where you were. They're not going to move out just because you're there.
Yeah. It's really hard to say as far as the size. Like you said, we had some Class Bs. We saw some shadows, big shadows move through.
Mm-hmm.
We actually had a FLIR, and you could actually see the footprints on the ground, heat signature.
Oh,
And
that's
this was like
excellent.
in March.
Excellent.
And
Great.
I casted. We had one print that was casted that I know of that I found. We had the eye glow phenomenon in that area.
Mm-hmm.
We had howls, tree knocks, anything that you can think of. And I
Mm-hmm.
know I'm saying this like, I'm some kind of nut job, but anything that you can think of that pertains to Sasquatch, we had
Yeah.
it on that
Yeah.
property.
Mm-hmm.
It was, like I said, it was just, and it was an incredible area in itself. There was a lot of natural moving water. Beavers had dammed up quite a bit of it. So there was, a lot of beaver dams, a lot of fresh water, things like that. Big expanse of land. There was a commercial
Right.
tree farm that was adjacent to this property.
Okay.
And a lot of wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
And it's odd too, because in that same area there was a lot of Native American artifacts also. We found quite a bit of that. Yeah, it was very, very interesting. I've tried for at least 13 years to explain the light phenomenon, and I cannot.
Yeah, and I won't disagree with you on the light phenomenon and say, oh, it's fireflies or it's stars peeking over a hill through the forestry and the canopy. I'm not going to do any of that because I've experienced it too, and I know how to. I've had it experienced it so much I know how to debunk it now. Because I know what to look for and say, oh, it's not. But don't mineral lights. I've heard everything, but when these things all of a sudden show themselves and trail you, I've had them follow me on a trail. Okay,
We had that happen also.
I led an expedition in South Carolina last fall in November with a group, and there were 5 of us out, some military in the group, and we had activity. I'll just get cut to the chase. I mean, a lot of activity that night, interaction, just like you're saying, all around a huge field with a tree island in the middle of it, and there was all corrugated metal shack back there. Nobody been in it forever, court rusted. And I watched this light. Several of us had FLIRs going, and we're looking. And sometimes you got to put the equipment away. But I watched this ball of light about the size of a melon come around the top of that corrugated building, look at us, and then recede and go back around the other way. And so I bring that up because it almost seems to me like these balls of light are some manifestation of energy that can observe you. So, I'm on that. That's kind of my theory. And I don't know why that happens. So it could be to, number one, get you to look elsewhere, as we said. Number two, could have the powers to observe you and be looking at you. And number three, I don't know that it's physical because it can dissipate or be gone quickly.
I'll be honest. I've talked about it on the show before. In this same area, I actually saw one of the lights form.
Really?
Me and another guy. Yeah, we were sitting on the ground, and it was kind of dim to start with, but it was really small, maybe about the size of the tip of my little finger.
Okay.
And it just started glowing on the ground, and then it got a little bit bigger, and it got a little bit bigger, and it got a little bit bigger, and then it got up about the size of a softball, and it started floating up.
Wow.
And the guy that was with me asked, he said, "What is that?" And I said, "Dude, I don't know." And he said, "What are we doing?" And I said, "I'm out of here. I'm gone." But yeah,
well,
and there, like you said too, there's so much that goes on. And as a researcher, and I'm gonna tell you this too, if you're a new researcher and you're just getting started into this, I'm just going to tell you, be ready. Because when something like this happens, it's not just one thing. Okay, it's multiple things. And like I said, in this one particular property, like the first time that I was there was so much that happened. I lost all control. I couldn't focus on what my main goal was.
Right.
And that's something to be aware of. And something that I picked up too that I do now for, like I said, for new researchers, carry a notebook and a pen, pencil, something with you. Take notes, weather, time, what, as much information as you can write down. It's all relevant. It's all important.
Yep.
And, like I said, with the light phenomenon, I've tried 13 years. There was a lot of quartz in the area where this happened at. And you can bang quartz together and get a spark. And it's mostly because quartz does hold some small electrical charge. Most of the time, the spark that you're going to get from it is not hot enough to start a fire.
Right.
So my last theory was I thought that there was microscopic pieces of quartz that were being blown around in the wind and they were banging off each other. And that was what was causing the light, which seems sensible until you think that the wind didn't blow every night that we was there.
Right.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. And, when you experience all of this stuff, it is really hard to maintain your focus. Now, with that being said, what do you do to maintain your focus when you have all of this activity and it's happening all at once? How do you compose yourself and continue the investigation?
So that's a very good question, and I got a couple of answers to it. One is I used to do a lot of research on my own in the woods. In Wisconsin, I did a bit, and in Tennessee, I did go there a little bit. But I'd be out in the woods by myself, solo, and I'd have a recorder going, and I'd bring thermal if it was around dusk in the dark and everything. I don't do that anymore. A couple of reasons. One is I know that these things exist, and I know they have capabilities well beyond me or any technology I have. Secondly, if you have people with you, you can handle what you're discussing very well. So in the BFRO, when we run an investigation, we send groups out at night. We make sure they're not close to each other. They're geographically spread out. When I run an expedition, I typically will have, if there's 30 people, I have 5 groups of 6 go out at night, or I like to keep the groups around 5 or 6, no more. In each group, everybody gets assigned a duty. So there's a group leader. They're probably going to take them, if they're a walking group on a trail that's been investigated. They're the one that's going to make the call of whether to stay or go, that kind of thing. But there's a group leader that leads. There's someone that takes notes, to your point, always in every group, whether it's on a phone or it's a little notebook that we give them, red lights on only, somebody takes notes. Number 3, we have somebody that does provocation. So somebody in a group, so everybody's not stepping on each other. Someone is there to maybe do knocks or whoops or whistles, or, we do things like Irish flutes, Native American music, low drum beats. We'll try all kinds of lights, laser lights. We'll try different things. If we're in an area we think they're around, to entice them. So we'll have somebody in the group that's doing that. I always have someone who agrees to be at the back of the line. If we're walking single file, there's always somebody that stays in the rear, because, last thing you want to have is to lose somebody out there in the woods, as you're going. Oh, yeah. And then we have somebody carry a first aid kit, all that kind of thing, because you never know what you're going to run into. But if you organize your group going out and you have people, one other, I'll typically, if I can, especially with a sitting group, walking not as much, sitting group, I'll have someone who has a parabolic and headphones. So, and you just a $50 parabolic set that you can get on Amazon is as good as anything. Put some good headphones with it. But, if we have a sitting group, somebody is always scanning the area, 360 or at least 180 sweep, when we hear different things going on, because these things are, because you've been out there, when you're stationary, if you've walked for a while and they're paralleling you, or they want to come around and see what you're doing, because they can't figure out what's this group of people with red headlights doing on this trail at 1:30 in the morning, and then you stop and they come around. It's always good to be able to listen to them and see where they are. Now, a lot of times I'll have somebody in the group assigned the FLIR, to use the FLIR. You mentioned that before, but I'm telling you, I like to use FLIR in just quick fashion. I have a Seek thermal that I use. It's easy to use, but if you're using it all the time, you lose your night vision. And I just find the more of this technology that you use when they're around, they just don't come around. They may come and bump into it and get sick of seeing the IR or something and turn and go the other way. I've had them in groups where you got 3 people flaring and they're throwing rocks out of the woods at you. It's almost as much as to say, knock it off. So we do better with your 5 senses.
Yeah, I believe that also. Well, we're about halfway through the show here, Rick, and as promised we have a song for you, so I'm gonna get that started. If that's all right. Let's see
That's
how
all
this
right.
goes.
Cool.
He spent 30 years in the corporate game, wearing a tie and a company name, but he traded that office and the city life for a pair of muddy boots and a North Carolina night. He heard a howl back in 2010, and he's been out in the timber ever since then. From the Badger State down to the Blue Ridge line, he's looking for a legend that's hard to find. He's a high plains drifter in a camo hat, tracking a shadow where the woods grow fat, with a field guide in his pocket and a song in his soul. Rick Reles is out on a midnight patrol, talking stick structures and the wood booger walk. Listen real close when you hear the man talk. He's the BFRO's finest, true believer, son, a 90-proof researcher under the rising sun. Now he's counting up the branches and the twisting the pine, reading forest language one limb at a time. He's a partner in the Squatch, we're a businessman too, but he'd rather be out where the morning is due. He's just Rick on the radio, strumming the chords, telling tall tales that the world ignores. If you're lost in the thicket and you hear a loud crack, you better hope Rick is there to have your back. He's a high plains drifter in a camo hat, tracking a shadow where the woods grow fat, with a field guide in his pocket and a song in his soul. Rick Reles is out on a midnight patrol, talking stick structures and the wood booger walk. Listen real close when you hear the man talk. He's the BFRO's finest, a true believer, son, a 90-proof researcher under the rising sun. Some call it crazy, some call it a ghost, but he's the man who's seen it from coast to coast. He's got the proof in the tracks and the bend of the wood, fighting Sasquatch just like he knew he would. Yeah, he's out in the wild, just Rick in the woods, doing the wood booger walk, doing it real good. Rick Reles, keep on watching.
Yeah, nice.
That was a good one. I
Thank
like
you.
that.
I
That's
like that
awesome.
a lot. That was
That's
awesome.
cool.
Thank you. That was really, really
Uh,
good.
Yeah, you're really good at these songs.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed that. You know, it sounded like a Telecaster through a twin reverb amp too. So any of you musician folks out there, that's a
It's
guitar
it's
was.
all AI. That's the scary part.
Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
great.
it is. Sasquatch Wizard, Gary, you're really, really good at these songs. I'd like to make a suggestion.
You could.
Create a yearly full album. Hey, yeah, that'd be something to think about.
Yeah.
Something to think about. But I got to be honest with you, I cannot take credit for any of these songs.
Okay.
100% my co-producer that does it, and he's wonderful at it. He's
Well,
wonderful.
he is wonderful at it. I need to get a copy of that.
Well, I'll get your email before we go, and we'll
All
try to
right.
get one sent out. And
Yeah. No,
I'm
that was
gonna be
wonderful.
I'm gonna be 100% honest. I am not a tech guy. Okay, I couldn't do this. if my life depended on it. Okay, I am the mouthpiece. I do the talking. That's what I'm good at. So,
well,
you know, I
congratulations,
can't be
Billy. Did a
serious.
nice job with that. I really enjoyed it. That was excellent.
Oh yeah, and buddy, there's some good ones. We have made some good ones.
Yeah,
Some good
very
ones.
cool.
Uh,
Excellent.
now, just a second ago, we were talking, and he's talking about they would throw rocks and things like that because they're tired of seeing the hour. I am a firm believer that is why the game cameras don't work. And
Yep.
I'll expand on it a little bit, and then I'm going to get some thoughts from you on it as well.
Okay.
But my thing is there's three things that I think that make game cameras like Neil and Boyd when it comes to getting a photo of Sasquatch. Number one is the IR camera. I think they can see that IR beam. Number two is all of those cameras make a noise. Every one of them.
Yep.
There is some noise that comes with it. And anybody that's a hunter, I'm a hunter, anybody that hunts, whenever you have those out, you'll get one picture of the animal, and then the next picture of the animal's turned and looking straight at the camera.
Yep.
And the number three for me is bears steal game cameras all the time because the game cameras are made out of plastic and they smell like formic acid. So a bear smells it and he thinks it's an ant heel. I'm going to rip this off this tree and get a really good snack right here.
Right.
So that's why you find your game cameras chewed up, busted up when a bear gets a hold of them. So I think they can see it. I think they hear it. And I think they smell it. And that's not just with game cameras. That's with a lot of equipment that we all use. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree entirely. I've got game cameras, trail cams. I've pretty much given up on putting those on. You can't fool these things. So your point on them seeing it, you know, what they see in the woods and what they see as order in the woods, if we put this up on a tree and it's in an area they frequent, they're going to see it. They're going to notice it. They're in these woods all the time. We're not. We show up and we strap a trail cam on a tree and we think we're fooling them. No, they're going to see it. I mean, I've got, you know, a situation where you just spin those things right around or they take them down, you know. And what do you get when you do get a shot of them? I've had some luck on a habituation site, and it's going to sound crazy, but you know, the gentleman who owns property, if we put it out there, we'll tell them because we know they frequent the back of this guy's property. And we just tell them, and it was, hey, we're going to put this up. If you want to show yourself on it, go ahead. But it's only going to be up for a couple of days. And if you do that, all of a sudden you get the mullet shot, you know, where they're running by, you know, so they let you see the back of the head and the mullet hanging off. I mean, that's famous. You know, people get that kind of thing. Wow, that's great evidence. Well, you know what? Bigfoot knows that thing is there. You know, if we put it up at 6 foot and it's an 8 foot, 9 foot tall Bigfoot, you know, it's look at him in the chest. I don't know. For me, you know, unless you're honest with them, you can't out-tech these. You can't trick these things. So, you know, along with everything you said, you know, I think they are able to sense this and see it there. But your only chance of really getting anything on with them is just to talk to them because, you know, when that thing opens up and clicks open, there's a second or so in there. They know that's happening. Then it floods the whole area with IR. They can see that. I know they can see it. I used to rely on IR binoculars a lot. I had some of the best military grade I could. I'd take that stuff out. I spent hundreds on it. And when I threw that IR beam out there, when I had activity, the activity went away. Or if I thought I saw something, it stopped. And then you hear the big knock or the big tree break and off they go. You know, so I know that they see that stuff.
Now, I have had people that's had some unwanted activity. I'm going to say their animals had been messed with. One of them had been hurt to the point that it needed a vet to come in and do some like emergency stitching and things like that on it. And I told them, go out if you can afford it, buy the cheapest game cameras that you can buy and set them up in a perimeter. And that's it. You won't have any more trouble. And I think that's, you know, basically what I come up with. Now, Sasquatch Wizard here, which everybody saw me put my glasses on, which is kind of a rarity, but I'm not seeing real good tonight. Says, Gary, I was speaking to I'm assuming New York State econ
Environmental
officer.
Conservation, yeah.
And he said that bears are attracted to the lithium in the batteries and that some animals pick a high frequency ringing sound that draws their attention. And yeah, that's, right along with what I said. I think they hear it, see it, and smell it. Whether it's the batteries, whether it's the noise just from the camera activating, and it's all out there. It's really incredible what you're dealing with as far as intelligence goes.
Right.
And like I said, I don't want to stick a flag in the ground and say I'm right here, you're not going to move me. But you're dealing with an animal that has almost human intelligence. And, just like you said, you're not going to out tech it. Okay. If I go to Rick Reles' house tonight, middle of the night, 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and I take a big green box and I strap it to his kitchen table,
I was just thinking
he's
that.
going
You
to
read my
notice
mind.
that.
Yeah.
He's going to notice that. That is his home.
Yeah.
So
you're
really
you read
not going to.
No, you read my mind. I was just thinking the same thing. This is their home, and you go out in the middle of it, and you just show up, and you put up a bunch of trail cams. You're going to trip. That's why I have, not to pick on the shows, I'm a big fan of Finding Bigfoot, because the town hall was one of the best things you could do. You bring actual people into a place to recite their stories, and you go on out and investigate where it happened. Great format. The latest show, the Expedition Bigfoot, they're very tech oriented, almost to the point they never rely on their five senses out there. As soon as they hear something, what do? On goes the flare, white lights go on. They've got every kind of recorder. They're setting up, all kinds of patterns around the campsite. So LiDAR this, LiDAR. I mean, I think you're too reliant on it. They're, Bigfoot see that, they're going, the heck with this. We'll go the other way.
Yeah. And too, when you're using your five senses, okay, there are problems with every kind of tech. I just bought my very first pair of night vision goggles, and they're not that. My wife actually got them for me. They're not that expensive. It's kind of a cheap kit. Yep. Just real quick, if I need to look at something, I can look at it real quick and then cut it off. Yep. Blah, 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 whatever. It's a tool to use. But when you rely on technology, okay, I say this on a show all the time because I live in the mountains of Southwest Virginia, right on the Kentucky border, and internet is not reliable. Okay, technology will get you. Okay, you're out, you're using this, you're looking, boom, the batteries go dead. Oh God, I got to change batteries. All right, how long is it going to take you to change batteries?
Right, in the dark.
In the dark. Blah blah blah, whatever. Or you got a drone, one of these thermal drones, which I think is wonderful. If you can afford that kind of technology, I think it's wonderful. I really do.
Right.
You've got that drone up in the air, and you're flying around. You have a limited window of what you can do with that,
right?
Because of battery power and things like that. And all technology has a breaking point,
right?
But the human body is the most incredible machine.
Right.
You have good vision, you have good hearing, which, my hearing is not that good anymore, but, it's all there. And I think, like you said, we are too reliant on the technology. The technology will eventually fail. Whereas if I kind of call it primitive Pete.
Right.
If you're more primitive Pete, then you have, a better chance of having that encounter.
Right.
Because you're not interfering with, what's going on. We've talked a little bit about eye shine. We talked, a lot of stuff. I'm going to hit on like the Rick Reles special right here. We're going to talk about stick structure.
Yeah.
Rick has actually got a book out, Bigfoot Field Guide to Stick Structures. He's got a copy right there. I'm going to get a copy because I'm fascinated with the stick structure thing. And I'll explain a little bit why I'm fascinated with it. The reason that I'm fascinated with it is I have seen stick structures. I cannot always say that these are Sasquatch related. I think some of them are human related. Some of them are weather phenomenons and things. I'm really, really skeptical about things when I look at it. Now, with that being said, I have found stick structures that I cannot explain. Okay, and I'll give you an example. I found a teepee structure one time, and it was on this property in Spotsylvania County that we talked about. And two of the trees in the stick structure, they were dead, rotten. There was no limbs on them, no leaves, pretty much just poles. They still kind of had the roots on the bottom of them. So that's a giveaway. All right. Now, if this is someone building a hunting blind, those trees with the roots on them had to be close, because nobody is going to be out hunting and drag something from way off out of nowhere in. So I started walking in circles around that structure to look for the holes where those trees with the roots would have come out of. And I probably went 100 yards out around those, and there was no holes where those trees could have come out.
Yep.
So that definitely carried in there by something and put there. And it's going to require a couple of these. Got to have thumbs to do that. And I cannot explain it. Give us some insight on some stick structures. What do you look for?
Yeah, that was great. I really like that you related it to me. So best practice is some of what you just did, which is look for where it could have come from in the area. And you did concentric circles and you couldn't find where it came from. So transporting the sticks in the branch or stick assembly is one of the things you look for sure. How did it get there? And if it isn't a human building a blind or some Boy Scouts out on a weekend doing a lean-to, to get a merit badge or something, you can rule that kind of stuff out. And then you rule out, so human construction is ruled out, and it isn't weather phenomenon, meaning a microburst took down a bunch of white pines, or it's snow load. I used to get a lot of that up in Wisconsin where, snow load, you could see it, or just bent those, they're permanently done. Then the last thing I look for is tropism. So are they bending toward the sun? Are they still alive and all reaching toward the sun in one area, or are they bending toward the water? Gravity can influence growth on structures. And when the members of the assembly are placed in a meaningful structure with the side branches broken off, the bark broken off, a lot of times you see that, and they're equidistant or symmetrical in the way they're put together, whether it's an X or an asterisk, or like you said, where they put together a blind, and it's intentionally built or put together, and you get that, you can see when you're looking at it, hey, what am I looking at? I've got a lot of examples out in the book too. You look at these things and you're saying, nobody built, there's no humans out here, and nobody could have built this. Or why is this here? It's a blind up above on a hill in the woods, so they can sit in there and look down at a trail below where people go by on horses. I'm speaking from experience, I haven't seen that sort of thing. Then you can put some meaning behind it. A lot of times I think they're used for observance, okay? But I look for symmetry. I look for the members of the assembly to fit into a pattern. In the book, I have in the book, and again, it's I'm coming out with a 5th edition pretty soon because I now have some glyphs and things in there, but I have them categorized into 7 different categories. Okay, and that's one that you just mentioned there as where you have a teepee or a nest, that is one of them. But whether it's an asterisk, that's another one. The arches, these arches, you can look for it pointed, it's stuck in the ground.
Yeah.
Where the tree or sapling is bent over, it's a substantial sapling. It's bent over. All of the side branches are pulled off of it. It's stuck in the ground, or there's a big rock put over the other end of it, or a log. It didn't grow like that on purpose. That was not what it was thinking about when it was a seed in the ground. It was not, it didn't grow to that piece. That to me is a giveaway. So I look for things constructive and a lot of times these are engineered, or they look like they've been built by more than one creature. Because you look at like a big asterisk with the members in it all across, and there's a center focal point and they're all equidistant from the center of it where they crisscross, and they're suspended up in a tree, and there's substantial branches, and you say, telephone pole almost. You're like, how the heck did that happen? And it didn't fall through any natural cause and was assembled. You look at it and you say, well, it had to be more than one creature that did that too. I've seen these things, some of them are beyond the scale of humans being able to do without equipment. And there's no room for any equipment out in the woods where these things are constructed. So scale sometimes is a thing to look for too, Gary. It can be really big. But they will here's another thing, to put this in your head. They will build these things. You'll go a long way, all of a sudden you come upon an area of these things. Rule out the weather conditions. Rule out anything that could be affecting the plants there. And all of a sudden you've got a lot of these assembled in an area. I've had areas I've gone into with frequency over the course of a year. They'll put them up and then they'll take them down sometime too. So sometimes you look, Yeah, sometimes you're looking at they've constructed them or put them up into an area, and then later on in the year you see them taken down. So I could theorize who can get into Sasquatch's head, but may have something to do with the children because I've seen them in different scale, even minute and small ones too, or near big ones. May have something to do with the juveniles constructing these. They have a lot of similarities, and I have that in the book too, with Native American symbols. So I spent a lot of time really digging into Native American symbols and some of the things that are prevalent in there, and looking at the X. What does the X mean? The tall X. And a lot of Native American symbols that would say that's a presence, a male presence, a powerful presence, that sort of thing. The asterisk has meaning. A lot of that follows the sun, kind of things like that. But some of what they do has meaning. And then to get to your point, you mentioned. I'm glad you mentioned the opposable thumb because there's a lot of discussion about that. Do these like an ape? I'll see if I can do it here. But do they all fold over together? But the thumb is not opposing, so the thumb is symmetrical and in order with the other fingers, and they fold over like in a sandwich. I mean, that's like pita bread or something. That's how an ape's hand works, a primate's hand works. Well, we have opposable thumbs as humans. There's an awful lot of these things that you find out there in the woods that have been bent or twisted around, and frankly, I don't know if it could be done unless there was an opposable thumb. So that's another thing I look for quite often when you look for these things. In the book I've mentioned this before, I got a picture Scott Carpenter gave me, which I think is a really good one because it does show, I'll put it here because I always try to make this point, but, when it's twisted and bent like that, that's not a weather phenomenon. And there's no human that could do that. A bear is not doing that. But it has some meaning to them. So I try to treat the areas where they build these with respect, and I try to come back to those areas at night. Frankly, if we're doing an investigation, when we daytime scout on a BFRO expedition, we find an area with a lot of these. We're sending a group there at night because I do think these things, if they put them up, they observe and watch these things or watch this area. And the area could be fairly big. It could be 100 yards square, or it could be smaller. 100 feet square, but all of a sudden, you come upon an area of this, and sometimes things start to feel weird. You get somebody's looking at me over my shoulder feeling. You get the creeped out feeling. I've experienced all this over the years. I'm not speaking from one or two events. I mean, I'm giving you collective knowledge from 16 years of research on this. Weird things happen around these things when you get to them. I've been out on expeditions, had Sasquatch activity with a group, and going back to investigate the area next day to see what was there during the day, and found stick structures in the area, not knowing they were there the night before. And I relate one other story for you real quick, because it was in one of the Finding Bigfoot shows. I consulted on that one too, because I was leading a group, and there was another investigator leading a group, northern Wisconsin. We had activity. We're half mile apart. They radioed to us, "Get over here quick," and my group went to them. But they were walking on a trail and saw a group of stick structures in an area. There was about 5 or 6 of them. Got off trail, red lights, were looking at them, and while they're looking in this area at all these structures, taking pictures of them and everything, a 4.5 foot tall Sasquatch ran from behind the tree right through the group, across the trail and down into a swamp. So. I remember that night talking to them. They all saw it. I mean, it was there. And so stuff happens around these things. If you come to an area, a legitimate stick structure building, I always encourage folks to go back at night and you see them. And I think they have some indicators from a numerical standpoint too. 1, 2, 3 of them. One of the ones I talk about is where a tree will bifurcate, grows up and splits. And they will pile. Sometimes you'll see 3, 4, 5, 6 would look like long, big, tall walking sticks with the side members of the branch all broken off, laying in there. It's all the same size, like pickup sticks, laying right in the center where it splits. And I think that has some kind of a meaning. Maybe there's 4 of us in this area, or maybe it's a marker. I don't think they build these things for us, by the way. I think they're building them for each other. Whether it's an address marker or it's some kind of sacred symbology, or I don't think they're doing this for us humans. X, go away. I don't think there's any of that going on. I think they're building these things for themselves.
I'm going to say this. You really piqued my interest right there with the split tree, because I have seen so many of those. and just walked by it, never thought nothing about it. Not even on my radar. It's just sticks that's falling down in there. Never thought about that before. I might have to start taking a closer look at that.
Well, if people say to me, which one should I look out for, Rick? And I always tell them, look for the arch. And if the arch is stuck in the ground or pinned on the other end, it's a good sign. Look for the twist. Look for the acute angle break, the ones that look, they have an angle break and it's acute. There are a lot of times those are around 8 feet tall when you see that happen. 6, 7, 8 in that range. So it's around the height I think these things are for whatever reason. And then look for symmetry. They're close to each other. But the one you're talking about, I'm not talking about sticks that fall from the wind and fall down there. I'm talking about these look like walking sticks. They've been cleaned up and they're laying in there and they're off trail. They're over in the woods and all of a sudden you see it.
Yeah.
Name an animal, a creature that would do that and just pile them up there, Gary. Why would a bear do that?
No, it's not natural. And
No.
I'm going to be honest with you. When you said walking sticks, I've seen that. I've seen a lot of that. And I'm talking about 3 and 4 foot, rotten sticks that are laying in this tree. And I'm like, they just fell. They just fell. Anyway, we've got a couple questions here. I'm going to hit these real quick. Ray Mosley says, what do you think that, why do you think that they make these structures?
So we talked a little bit about the blind and there's been some really good footage of, up in the Pacific Northwest. There's cliff barrackmans inside of some of them, and some of that, that was in one of the shows. So it could be, number one, it could be if you really come upon a big area, it could be a nesting area too. You'd see them. I've found a little of that, like a lean-to or tent type thing, but I have not found a big area of nesting. Number two, blind or a place to sit in to observe. I think that's very, I've found these above trails a number of times. I've been called out to, horse camp areas, and there's activity and found this kind of thing up above. So I think they'll use them as a way to sit and watch human activity. Absolutely. But a lot of the other ones, if they're not address markers, if they're not, I don't think they're for us, stay away or any of that. I really don't think. I think they're doing it for each other, indicating maybe the number in the clan, or solo. This is my area. I've been here. It could be a marker. I'm passing through, and this is just a mark to let someone else know that's coming along this trail. Could be it's safe to use this trail at night. I don't know, but I think they're communicative devices for each other.
Okay, we got one here from Sasquatch Wizard. I'm gonna read this one off here. Rick, is it fair to say that every tree structure suspected to have been created by a Sasquatch with purpose does not include one instance where a Sasquatch was seen creating it or video of it?
Yeah, I've heard that before too. People say, well, we've never seen a Sasquatch building one of these things too. We've never seen a Sasquatch building it. So how could it be? I accept that. That's true. There's a lot of things we haven't seen, but we believe in, or we look at its evidentiary after the fact. I'm okay. I'd love to see a Sasquatch building one of these things. I would love to see that. When I have seen Sasquatch, I have not seen them building these. They were either bluff charging me, or coming down a ravine at me, or trying to get away from me, or crossing a road in front of me, or crawling across a trail. I mean, I've seen them do those things, but no, I have not seen them build one. So that is a fair point. But at the same token, it's evidentiary. There's something going on there, and if you can rule out humans and animals, then who else is building these things? So maybe it's something else besides Sasquatch. I'd be willing to learn about that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna step in on that a little bit too, if that's okay, Rick.
Sure.
Animal behavior, okay, and it involves even humans, okay, is quirky, okay, right off the bat. A lot of behavior that people do, animals do, makes absolutely no sense. Okay. With that being said, there's a lot of animal behavior that we know is a thing, but it is still yet to be recorded or anything like that. A good point would be like the elephant graveyard, where the African natives say all the elephants go to die.
Right.
We don't have a recording of that. We don't have photos of that. There's no giant mountain of elephant bones somewhere. that
Right.
anybody has seen, found, recorded, or whatever. But like I said, animal behavior it doesn't make any sense to us, but to the animal that's doing it, it makes perfect sense. A good example, okay? I have a pretty good sized pickup truck. I drive a 2500 Chevrolet pickup truck. I have a large camper that I have to pull. So I have to have, a large truck. So with that being said, I have big side mirrors on the side of my truck, and a cardinal, the eastern cardinal, for the past week has been attacking my mirror on the truck. That really doesn't make any sense. I mean, there's manure all down the side of my truck where this thing is sat there and pecked and pecked and pecked at this mirror. Doesn't make any sense to us. Why is it doing that? Well, it's doing that because it sees its own reflection.
Yeah.
And he is trying to drive this other red bird away, and it won't leave.
Right.
So, that's exactly what I'm talking about. No, it's probably not being recorded, but it's still a quirky behavior. And with that being said, too, primates do a lot of strange things.
Right.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier was the side to side movement. I've heard it described too as it kind of moves like a crackhead.
Yeah.
On drugs, because it'll do this strange, which is 100% primate behavior.
Right.
Modern gorillas, chimpanzees, all these, they do a lot of swaying.
Right.
It's a stress response. It's a territorial response. It could be a dominance display. And I'm just going to tell you too, when you have like my sighting, the creature was probably about 3 feet from me when I had my sighting. It was a road crossing, and I was in a Jeep Wrangler, so it was standing at the bumper of my Jeep. I almost hit it.
Wow!
When you see the size of this thing, okay, and like I said, I'm an old Marine. I did my time in the Marine Corps. I worked at a maximum security prison and a super maximum security prison here in the state of Virginia. I'm a trained observer. I'm a hunter. I'm an outdoorsman. I've seen a lot of animals. There is nothing on this planet that looks like that.
Yeah.
That's the best description I can give you. Nothing. The size and the gait. And I say this a lot on the show too, Rick, and the gait, the only thing that makes it human-esque is the fact that it is on 2 feet.
Right.
Everything else about it is completely different. Now, being an old Marine, I used to get in trouble a lot because I'm just an old country boy, and when I walk, I diddy bop. I move a lot when I walk. I know you know what I'm talking about. I got a lot of head movement, a lot of shoulder movement when I walk. I'm just an old country boy. I saunter around and do things. So, anyway, I would get in trouble for that a lot when I was in the Marines because you're supposed to be this really stoic, Yeah. But when you watch Sasquatch walk, the rate that it's moving, it's fast to start with. But there really isn't any upper body movement with it.
Right.
It is extremely smooth. It's almost like the thing is, I've heard it mentioned roller skating, skis, and all of it makes sense to me. I mean, from what I saw, the gait was so smooth.
Right.
That I was just, blown away. That's another point too. When you have that Class A sighting like you were discussing, there is so much stuff going on in your brain at one time trying to process everything. And it is an incredible sight. Now, when you're investigating a Class A sighting, what markers do you look for to say this is going to be, a good investigation? This is, blah, 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 whatever. What's the most compelling thing you look for in a Class A sighting?
So I look for recall. And when I investigate, it's who, what, when, where, why, all those, how. I take them through that. I don't put words in their mouth. So I don't ask yes, no questions, and I don't say things to them like, when it moved, the top of its head never moved, right? To your description there. Although I have seen exactly what you said, and I totally agree with what you said. I agree with your point on the primate. I'll give you one other primate thing quick as we go, because not to drift off, because and this reinforces your primate thing. I have been around these things and heard them jump out of trees and loud thud, and I've heard them with the pound on the pow 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 pound, the big hard pounding like thud thud on their chest. I think that's how they're doing it, but that's primate behavior. And I have heard that in the woods when they're around, they're trying to get you to move or whatever, that thud, loud thud 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 kind of thing. And I think that is primate-ish. But back to your question though on what he asked for. I'm looking for I'm looking for characteristics I know are Bigfoot, but I don't put them in the mouth. When they tell me how it moved, how it ambulated, how it moved, it was on skates or it was on like it was on ice or liquid. I heard somebody describe when it was like liquid, it was moving so smooth. Or they give me a detail like, I looked at it and I couldn't see a long neck. It looked like from the ears to the shoulders just sloped right down. Or here's another one I like. When I looked at it, it wasn't completely furry. It wasn't covered with fur. I expected one later to think it was all fur, but no, I could see the face. And there wasn't fur necessarily on the face, but there was hair hanging under the arms, hair hanging down on that. I've heard that one several times when people describing it. And I love that description because nobody would have thought about that ahead of time. So I look for how did it move, have them describe it. Obviously, how far was it? How long was the duration? Any noises it made? How did it move? How did you feel? Give me descriptions. Describe the eyes. I've had witnesses describe the eyes. And when they say to me, it was almost like the pupil took up the whole eye. I couldn't see white in there. Bingo. I know that's a good look because I witnessed that. I know, the white in the eyes is limited and the pupil, it seems, is much, much bigger. So I look for descriptions from them that I know from other investigations, my own personal, but other investigations, other Class A's that line up, but I don't lead them to that. I make sure they can give me as much as they can. And then best practice, if they've written it down after I had a case a year or so ago, 3 people in a family, get a load of this. And I think one of them I think the father was a police officer, father, son, wife coming home, rural road, going back to where they live. And they take this left back in the gravel rural road. And as they come around, there's this thing standing there. And 9 foot tall, butterscotch color. They get back to the house. First thing the father does is separate everybody to separate rooms, says, you're not coming out for an hour. Gives everybody pieces of paper and pencils, go write down everything. And the 3 of them got back together and compared. And then I met them and they gave me their notes and went over this. And that's how he knew. They were literally lockstep on the color of it, the size of it, where it was standing, how it looked at him, how it moved when it went away, and they drew it. You can't get a better, Class A type of experience related to you. I love that kind of thing. So, but that's rare that you get that. A lot of times you have to kind of pull it out of people, see what they see. Sometimes people are in shock so much they can't relate to what they saw. I can't tell you how many hunters I've talked to are just pissed off because they saw this thing and I've been in the woods for my whole life. I can't have happened. I'm never going back, and they can't give you detail on what they saw because they're just so damn mad. So they're either really mad, really scared, or in the case I just told you where I had someone with a police mindset, you get really good detail. I look for detail. If the detail isn't there, I've had some hoaxes I've had to turn away, but if the detail is not there and they weren't scared to death or they, aren't too, if they start to really exaggerate or they cross up on what they're saying and you ask the same question 2 and 3 times and you get 3 different answers, I tend to get away from that and know that it's, not understood and go away. But the good Class A's, those people know it's made an impression on you.
And, I'm going to say this too. Anybody that's had a sighting, this is an important piece of information for you. Okay. Do not discredit yourself. Keep account of what you saw. Rick mentioned something, the hair under its arms. In my own personal sighting, the creature that I saw was enormous to start with. Okay, I'm probably talking 8.5 feet, 3.5, 4 foot thick from its chest to its back. I mean, this was a massive, massive male. I didn't see genitalia or anything. It was a flat chest, so I'm assuming it was a male. Okay, assumptions are the mother of all screw ups, but we'll get into that later. Anyway, there was a few things that stuck out in my mind. Number one was the color. Okay, I believed in Sasquatch like kind of my whole life. I'm a child of the 70s and the 80s. I grew up watching In Search of with Leonard Nimoy. You know, I've saw the Patterson Gimlin film over and over. I've heard the Sierra sounds, you know, on these different paranormal shows, you know, back then, and I always thought it was real. Okay, but I always kind of considered it to be a West Coast thing. So I'd always thought that you would see this apish patty type thing, you know, from the Patterson Gimlin film that we all saw back then. So when I had my encounter, I got the size, 8.5 feet tall, super thick, you know. I think one of my original descriptions was it was the Incredible Hulk with hair. Okay, but it was a cinnamon red color. It was not black. Cinnamon red color. Its facial features were more human than they were ape. It was not extremely hairy. You could see parts of the face really clear because it wasn't covered in hair. And the hair under its arms and down under to its wrists was long, and it was rolled up like dreadlocks. And I think that come from the arm swing.
Sure.
And I never heard anybody describe that hair under the arm like that. So I thought to myself, people are going to think that I'm lying.
Right.
Just based on that one description that I saw that long hair and it was rolled up. And then come to find out last year, I watched before Dr. Jeff Meldrum passed, he was giving some advice to a guy that was building a VR set so you could actually see size comparison of things of Sasquatch. And Dr. Jeff Meldrum described the hair like that.
Yep.
That was validation. That was the only time I had ever heard anyone else say that. And now here over the past little bit, I've heard it a few more times, and it is, that's like, you know, a big weight off my shoulders.
Yeah.
But take what you saw and write it down, think about it. Don't take anything away from it. If you saw it, odds are pretty high that's what it was.
Right.
I mean, there's not anything else in the forest of North America that I can think of that size.
Right.
It's,
no, absolutely.
It's an incredible thing. And when, you know, you're out in an expedition, I like the way you set that up with all of the, this person does this person does that, this person does this. Small group. Now I'm talking 2 people, 3 people at the most. What would be your best advice for small groups?
Okay, so that's great. That's another great question. Thank you. You have some good ones, but I have a couple of very clear, distinct things I would do. First off, if you have a group of 2 or 3 and you're going out in the woods at night, and really I'm addressing this to a night hike or activity at night, because it takes your senses away. It takes away everything gets amplified that you hear and everything you see less, right? I mean, I always tell people you're going to hear more because you're high alert with your ears and your eyes can't see as much. I mean, let's face it, that's what you're doing. So you're relying more on your hearing and, you know, does your hair stand up, that sort of thing. But if you got 2 or 3 people out there and you're walking, you hear something, you come to a stop. I always tell people back to back. If you have 4 people, you go north, east, south, west. But I always go back to back. Somebody look down the trail where you came, somebody look up the trail where you are. If you come to a clearing, back to back, and then rotate. You know, if you have 2 people, you have 3, take different angles, but then rotate and step around. But you want to get ears in all directions. That's number 1, and eyes in all directions. So whether you have 2 people, 1 person, it's hard to do that, obviously. But if you have two, it's in a whole nother set of senses. So that's great. You've doubled your ability to experience and hear things. So I always tell people to get back to back to that sort of thing. Having a role when you're out there is critical. Even if it's a group of 2 or 3, you know, you want to get it down there. You know, what you don't want is you have a group that's out there so reliant on technology, they're tripping, falling down a ravine or something, or, you know, I've been with people in groups that are so married, they've made, you know, that $4,000 investment in the FLIR, and now they're going to see something. They picked up a spot. It's a hot rock, or it's a squirrel, you know, or it's a raccoon up in a tree. They picked up a hot spot and they're married to it. And for the next half hour, 45 minutes, they're looking at that thing. If you're in a small group, you don't have time for that. Okay. You know, really, you're in a small group, you get to a spot, you hear a loud knock or a howl somewhere, Get that piece of paper out, somebody in the group, to your point, even with 2 people, write it down, what happened, where it happened, etc. Because you may be coming back, but you won't remember everything unless you get even just a couple of quick things out. You're out there, it's 10:30, heard a loud howl 7 seconds from the east. Get some bullet points down so later on you can compare. If you don't have a lot of activity, it'll stand out. You'll be able to look at it next day and debrief. Debrief, by the way, I don't care if your group is 2, 3, 4, or 20. Next day, you got to debrief. You got to sit down and talk through what you experienced. But jotting down a couple of notes as you go, or getting your phone out and putting it down helps, because you will not, when there's a lot of activity, you will not remember everything that happened in sequence. Won't. And when you were in an active group recently. Next day, when you're all talking about it, you're saying, well, remember then at 11 o'clock this happened. No, it didn't come from there. It came from over here. No, it wasn't one knock. It was 3 knocks. No, there was one from the left of us and then one from the right. Well, no, I thought they were from the right. Well, that's because I was facing you and you're facing me. So you've got to get some kind of recall in sequence down. So having a notepad, even with 2 people, or a phone to jot it down, best practice.
Excellent. That's a really good answer. Really good answer. And
based on experience.
I'm going to expand just a little bit. If you are by yourself, if you can find a large tree, put your back to that tree.
Yep, I agree.
Then turn directionally. And what you're doing is that tree behind you, whether you realize it or not, is kind of a sound barrier.
Right.
So you can actually kind of turn and pick up what you're hearing. Another thing, too, that I want to talk about is mimicry. Now, we've all had an experience. My experience, which I've spoken a lot on here, I heard an owl one time, North American barred owl. That was not a barred owl. Okay? If it was a barred owl, that barred owl was probably 800 pounds and had the largest lungs of any bird that's ever lived. Instead of the high pitch, which I do a pretty good owl impersonation.
Yeah.
But instead of the high pitched, owl sound, it was a really ooh, ooh, ooh. And it knew it screwed up because it stopped. It didn't complete the call. It just stopped. Now, what are your thoughts on the mimicry and the purpose of that?
Great question. And I've heard the 800-pound owl before.
Oh, yeah.
Multiples of them. And so let me try to answer it in sequence. Well, number one, mimicry. I think they're very good at it and they can do it. So why not do it? So they'll use it for deflection. I think I referenced a little of that earlier. They'll do it because they can do it, and almost in an autistic manner. It's like they've learned how to make a sound of a nail gun, they're going to start making it over and over in the woods, and you're going to hear nail guns all night. So it's kind of crazy the way they will do things like that. But it's if you had the ability to mimic what you just heard, and I think they're great observers, great listeners. I think they watch the work crews and expanding suburbia. I think they're around farms and watch. If you can pick up and hear something and you get fascinated with it and you can do it, why wouldn't you do it? And then they just spit it out, whether it has purpose or not, they do it. Now, to that point, you look for it being out of place. In the case you're a 600 or 800-pound owl, the force of it, and all of a sudden it happened when something else happened. It was a knock, or you felt weird, or stick break, and you thought something was watching you. All of a sudden there's that owl, 600-pound owl. It sounds like it's 100 yards to the east, and then there's another owl 50 yards to the west, and it's there all of a sudden, and it's really powerful. How did that happen? Now, you got to rule out that it's real owls, barred owls, because I think they use barred owls and coyotes kind of as their eyes and ears out there. I think they're kin to the Bigfoot, and they use them for purposes out there of, force multiplier. I really do. That being said, if all of a sudden you got some people out there, they got a FLIR, they're listening, there's 5 people standing back to back, whatever, looking, and they know you're there in that area. What's a fun game to do, or what's a better way to get rid of them? Well, start making noises. What noises would you make? Well, make noises that you've heard people make. I've heard car alarms out in the woods in the middle of nowhere coming from, 100 feet in the woods. I've heard circular saws, babies crying, staple guns, all sorts of whistles, tropical birds. If you can do that kind of thing, why wouldn't you do it? It's a great weapon to get somebody scared and get them to go. And it's a great way if you want to be, from an amusement standpoint, making a noise. And I've heard these noises in the group, and instead of us getting scared, we repeat the noise back if we can, and it can become a game. You know, if they're in a playful mood and they want to play, you can do this back and forth. They'll mimic something, you mimic something. I had really, really good activity a few weeks ago on this expedition I was with. We'll bring call blasters and blast. Now, you know, people will bring out and blast sounds of a dying rabbit and all that kind of stuff, or coyotes, and then coyotes respond. I don't do as much of that. I'll do things that I've had good success with them. Playing Native American music, flutes and drums and call blasting, that works. Playing different types of primates and birds and call blasting, that I've had good luck with bringing them in. A couple weeks ago, group I was with, four of us. One was recording, three of us were doing things. We were playing sandhill cranes. I don't know if you've ever heard of sandhill crane. They're in pairs, but they're huge birds. They mate for life, and they're up north in the summer, down in Florida and up places like that in the winter. But they make phenomenal noises, very, very loud. You know, like not as grandiose as a peacock, but not loud. Although I've used peacock. We were playing those and blasting that into the woods. I'm telling you, we had activity. They came around. Why do they come around? Because it's a noise that's out of place, or it's loud bird sound, or loud sound that's out of place. Or maybe they come around because they know they're fascinated and they want to see if they can make the same noise. You know, if you're really good at mimicking and you hear noises, isn't that something you'd be attracted to? Hey, what is that? And get there and see if you can do it. You know, I've had to mimic the noises we make. Loud knocks, really loud back. Soft knocks, real soft back. You know, so, you know, they'll do things like that. I've heard noises in the woods, like, you know, like a rock hitting a stop sign. And you're on the top of a mountain in the middle of freaking nowhere, you know, on a 2-track or a clearing that had been logged or something. Why are they making that kind of noise? You know, I don't know why they make it, but I don't think there's any limits to the noises that they can make. And I'll finish up by saying I've got a habituation site that's been recording stuff for years on this. We've heard everything mimicked right outside the window of the guy's back house. Everything mimicked, from the staple gun I mentioned, which is fun, but construction site noises, saws, hammers, staple guns, everything from that to different types of farm animals, donkeys, cows, right outside the window, right outside where we put the recorders. Loud. You know, so it's not people or bears walking up in the middle of the night making this. It's Bigfoot. And they do it because they can. And I think they enjoy doing it. And I think, you know, I don't think there's any limits to it. It's fascinating as can be when you hear things like this. And you can't freak out when you hear it. I think some of it is done to set you off balance. But you hear some of that stuff, I've been at it so long, you just start to laugh. You know, and I'll yell to the whistle, "Thank you, that was great. You know, that was really, really good. Can you do that again?" You know, but they're good at it.
And I think a lot of it too, Rick, might be hunting strategies. I'll just, for an example, duck calls.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The more you can sound like a duck, the better you are.
Yeah, better you are. And I use these when I'm out, and I use owl calls. Quite honestly, I've got a couple of different ones I use when I'm out there, because I have all kinds of provocation things I use. But we'll make owl calls. So what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You know, no activity from Sasquatch, but the owls come in and you talk to the owls. But I've had them respond to owl calls when you're out there, and any of those types of things too. So, you know, you get your people and you're out on a trail in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, and you start making a bunch of silly noises. Now, I'm not one for making antagonistic noises, I believe with these things, you more of honey than you do with vinegar. I don't think you get out there, start making a horse's ass out of yourself in their living room and just yelling and screaming and banging on stuff. You know, I just don't think that's, you know, what you do. And it makes for good TV when they blast, you know, all kinds of loud noises and wails and stuff. But, you know, I like making noise. Like I said, play the sandhill cranes, play something that's out of place, but it's a creature in the woods. See what they say, see if they come around. But I've had great luck with Native American music, and I've had great luck with different bird calls.
And, you know, the Native American thing, it goes way back in Native culture that, you know, Sasquatch is a mimic. It can make the noise of animals. The Cherokee legend even says that there was one specific type of Sasquatch that live with the Cherokee and learn to speak some Cherokee.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, anybody that's listened to the Sierra sounds, you can hear them making all these different calls. But at one point in the Sierra sounds, I actually think I hear what I call Proto-English, which is I hear what sounds to me like Sasquatch mimicking human speech by saying, "What the F?"
No kidding. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And with that being said, you got to realize this was a hunting camp. These guys were probably, they rode in there on horseback. They carried everything that they had there on horseback. They were probably drinking, some adult beverages and probably using some rough language and things like that. So that would not be out of the realm of possibility that Sasquatch heard these people say that and tried to mimic that back to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really fascinating. That's another subject. It's right along the lines with the stick structures that we just talked about. It is a really fascinating subject that I really don't have any, no answers to. I don't understand why they do it, but they do it. And
have you, let me ask a question. Have you ever heard Sierra sounds in the woods?
I have not. I have not. I will tell this one little story. I'm like the world's biggest ripoff artist. Okay. If I'm talking to Rick Reles and Rick Reles says something to me that makes a lot of sense, well, I'm going to write that down and I'm going to start using it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think as a researcher, if you're not doing that, you're missing out.
Right.
Okay. Share what you do with other people. That's a big thing with me. But anyway, I watched a documentary about mountain gorillas and the native guides that they had when they approached these gorillas would make a clicking noise with their tongue. They would. So the gorillas got accustomed to hearing that sound and knew that it was these people coming and there wasn't going to be any trouble. And so on this one particular expedition, I started making that noise. So we would go out in the woods and just every now and then I'd do some tongue clicking and make some noise. And there was a couple people in different areas. They said, "Hey, Gary, was you over here?" And I was like, "No, why?" And they said, "Dude, we heard that clicking noise that you do over here." And then it was over here. And it wasn't me because I wasn't anywhere near that.
Right.
So I think they picked up on that clicking noise that I was making and started doing it.
Right.
So
yeah,
it's incredible. I've never heard the Sierra sounds, but I have had them mimic me like that. I would love to hear the samurai chatter.
Yeah, I'm fortunate or not, whatever. I've just spent so much time out in the woods doing these things and so much time out in the middle of the woods in the middle of the night, well, sometimes freezing my butt off. But I have heard the samurai chatter. At one point in an expedition, probably 8 years ago, Northeast Georgia, I was with a group and I stepped away from a group in the pitch black by myself. It was about 50, 80 yards away from the group. I could hear two females because we had other activity going. I stepped away to see if it would follow. And I could hear two females talking to each other. And it was samurai chatter, only female all day long. I was on another investigation down the end of a cul-de-sac and a 2-track mountain woods in the northern woods mountains of South Carolina about 4 years ago, 1:30 in the morning. It was a scouting expedition. And we had a group I was waiting with two others, and we had a vehicle, and they got in. They were tired. I was still standing out there by myself, waiting for 2 hours. We got way back in the woods that were having some activity, and I heard a male talk this samurai chatter in the woods, and I'll tell you, it's unnerving. It's multisyllabic. I've talked to Scott about this too. Who does all the linguistics on that, and it's so fast, and the rapidity of how it goes by. It's hard. You can't mimic it. It does sound samurai-ish. It sounds like they're arguing with each other or arguing with themselves almost. So the inflections are very fast phonetically. It's up and down. It's staggered, staccato. There's nothing legato about it. I mean, it is very up and down in pitch and tempo and volume, harshness, low voice, high voice. I mean, it's hard to listen to almost. But when you hear it, you can tell the intent. You could tell, like, all right, well, they're not happy we're here, or they're not, in the Sierra sounds, there's parts of it I heard, the presentations on there where they say, oh, we can tell they're telling a joke there, or there's a laugh or something humorous going on. I've heard it in the woods, and I have not heard that. I've heard it where it's irritated you're there, but they're talking to each other, not to us, to each other. So, which I think is a valuable point. They're not using this technique to talk to us. They're talking to each other. That being said, I do take a lot of 50 years of living with Bigfoot. I've used the vocabulary that's in that book. I have cheat sheets on it. I've handed them out at expeditions. So the most meaningful words, I've carried that out in the woods for years, and that helps. For some reason, when I say, say Tonga, meaning my big hairy brother, or Nawk, N-A-W-K, the word Nawk, which means friend, or even owl, which is mope, when I use language from 50 years Bigfoot, which I think is built off Lakota Sioux. Anyway, when I use those lyrics or those words out in the woods, I'm not talking samurai chatter. I'm just using some of those words. I get responses, back, so they'll knock back. They'll respond, pow, we're here. All of a sudden, they'll peek at you'll see in the woods, or they'll whoop, they get a high pitched whoop right back, or so they'll acknowledge and come around. It's almost like you're speaking their language, and they know that they're there, kind of thing, and you've stepped into their comfort zone a little bit. But it's not like they get angry when you do it. I don't use any of the words that would make them angry or anything, and I certainly don't try to insult them. But I'll try to use some of those words sometimes out there.
That's fascinating. I like, you mentioned it's probably based on Sioux. Have you? Now, I know you live in Western North Carolina, which is Cherokee Indian territory. Have you ever tried any Cherokee words?
So I have some words in there that are built off that. I do have some. It's funny. I got a book of that kind of stuff here. I'm trying to pull some of that out because I spent some time in a Cherokee museum a little while ago. Cherokee's just up the road, 45 minutes from where I am, and I've gone in there. It's fascinating looking into their cryptic history and the things that they've experienced on through. I've spent a lot of time reading. I have a whole presentation on cryptos. Appalachian cryptids and things, right through to Spearfinger and Sol Kalu and all the things that they believe in, that they do have, to your point, they do have references back to really two types of cryptids that keep popping up. One is I'm going to say it, dogman type of thing, or it's a four-legged devil dog type of thing. They have references to that, and they have these other bigger type creatures too, whether the ironclad type creatures they talk about, or whether they're a Bigfoot type of creature. And it has different names in different parts of the area here, but that's definitely referenced in their history.
Well, the Sukalu is the one that I was speaking on earlier that actually learned to speak some Cherokee. There was another one, Genesqua, I think was the name of it. And that was this particular animal's name. Like the group would have been, I think the Cherokee called them the Nunyaway. They were actually predators, and they hunted and preyed on the Cherokee Indians. They ate their liver and their brains.
Yep.
The first time I read that, I was like, man, that's oddly specific.
Yeah,
liver and brains.
Yeah.
And the point of that is that is the two most nutrient-rich and fatty organs in the human body is the liver and the brains, which is what every wild animal in the world is looking for.
Right.
So that all made sense after that. So, yeah, there's a lot to it. I think, too, with the mimicry and stuff, you mentioned something that was 100% nail on the head, big light bulb go off, autistic. The behavior that you see in these creatures mimics autistic children's behavior. The mood swings, the swaying, even with the speech, the up and down. If you spend any time with a special needs child or special needs adult, I'm not going to limit it, you will see those patterns, the exact same patterns that you were talking about it.
Yep.
The Sierra Sounds, I've burnt them things up. Lord have mercy. But there's a few things that kind of throw me. I'm stuck on the language thing. I don't really know what to think about it. Animals can communicate. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have a specific language. Now, R. Scott Nelson says he sees inflection and things like that in the pattern. That could be, he could be 100%. I don't know, because like you said, it is so fast and it's so sporadic, up, down, up, down. I don't know how you could really get anything. You know what I'm saying? Now I
Right.
don't have any initials behind my name. I'm just, plain old country boy. And I'm really fascinated with it. Do you actually think that that is a specific language? Or do you think that it is maybe possibly just some type of communication? Which there are specific differences between language and communication.
Right. Yeah, and as Scott will say, he'll pick apart from a linguistic standpoint, trained in knowing different, codes and different languages and seeing the patterns of the language, so how it speaks out. I respect that. I see where that's throwing science against it. I think it's language. If it was just you mentioned a cardinal earlier. The cardinals will make it really interesting. You can get on any type of bird app and listen and see how it comes out on SoundCloud or Audacity,
Mhm.
and you can see the run of it and the repetitive nature of it and everything. That's how they'll communicate too. I don't think Sasquatch is doing that. I think Sasquatch is communicating in some type of sentence structure, language, using words that these words, by the way, may be different because colloquialisms exist in human language,
Yes.
and people in New York speak differently than people in Alabama, and that's just the way it is. The things they say, the language is to a degree different. Even the common language is said different. So with Bigfoot's, I think Bigfoots are as different as people are different too. I don't think we paint them all the same picture, and so they may have different languages in different places, different types. I spent a lot of time in my travel around the world and Asia too. Chinese people, I've been around Chinese a lot. And they speak a lot differently than we do.
Mhm.
They understand each other very well. We listen to and don't understand what they're saying. So, but they're humans and we're human. There's human beings all around the world that speak differently. So, and there's Bigfoots all around the world. They have different names, different places, different countries, different characteristics about them. So, I think it's a language to answer your question directly, but I think the application of it phonetically and how maybe their vocabulary is different.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. It really does. And I mean, even between different geographical areas, okay, like where I live at, I'm close to Tennessee, I'm close to West Virginia. I can look out my backyard and see Kentucky. I'm close to North Carolina, and all of these areas interact with each other. And I have a very distinct accent. And I've actually had people from Florida tell me, "Hey, you're making that up. You're making fun of us. Your accent's fake. You're trying to be, come up with this fake accent." I'm like, no. And they're like, "Yeah, where are you from?" And then you tell them, "I'm from Virginia." And anybody that you talk to, Virginia ends at Roanoke. You know.
Yeah.
But anyway, they're not used to the way that my particular accent is. And, throughout Appalachia, you got different words for different things. And throughout the US too, when you look at like even Bigfoot, okay, look at all the individual geographic names that we have in the US for Bigfoot. You have the
Right.
white things in Texas, no necks, chicken man, the boogers, all this other stuff. It's, when you think
Yeah.
about it, it all makes sense.
Grassman.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah, there's all those. I know they have different. And how many maps and things you look at? It's got Booger Holler and Booger this, Devil that. There's all names, local names for this thing, and the Boogeyman.
Yeah.
And and I've had talked to people about that before. But there's the point is there's acknowledgement of this thing that we're talking about now, all through time. So whether it's exactly whether it's human characteristic or animal characteristic or all these attributes, people have been hearing, seeing, or experiencing these things around the world
For
for a long time. Now, why are they
thousands of
here?
years.
Right. So the shows. I get frustrated with the shows because they're stuck on. Let's get the technology to acknowledge it's real. Bigfoot is real. They should drop the premise and just get out there and talk about the experiences. And like we're doing, we've talked at length about a lot of different things relative to Bigfoot here: language, mimicry, and eye shine or glow, and things they may build in the woods, their diet, what they eat. We're talking about that. But none of the shows approach that. They're all they're going to prove it, with technology kind of thing. And I think they're missing it. If you start out from, yeah, it's real, let's talk about it, you're probably better off because You could build a case that this thing has been seen, experienced by all sorts of humans around this planet for a long time.
And with that being said, too, Rick, I want to say this too. That kind of goes back to my little incident that I had earlier this week with the Sasquatch group that I was in, where the guy told me it wasn't real. Grow up. Okay, we have a lot of evidence, eyewitnesses, footprints, handprints, all this stuff.
Audio.
And they keep saying, "Oh, well, it's not real. It's not real. It's not real. Show me a video. Show me this. Show me that." The premise is eyewitness testimony by itself. Okay. Now, being law enforcement background myself too, eyewitness testimony is really not that great. Okay. There's a lot of differences. It's not consistent. That being said, if eyewitness testimony alone is not good enough to prove the existence of something, then there's going to be a whole lot of murderers let loose from prisons all over the United States, because that's what sent them to prison, was somebody seen them do that.
Right.
And that was enough.
Right.
So, that's something that gets left out a whole lot. And you mentioned the stick structures, kind of your niche study, which is wonderful. I think we really need that. We need people that concentrate on specific things.
Agree.
The thing that really interests me may not interest somebody else.
Right.
So people that can concentrate on these things. Charles Kimbrough, big on sound. He's the microphone
Big on
guy.
sound. Great with audio. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm gonna tell you what, he has got the slickest recording system out there. We've discussed that on the show, and with all of this different evidence that we have, collectively, we could get somewhere.
Right.
But the problem is people want to try to hoard up information.
Well, they do, and I want to make one. I'm sorry, I just want to make one point on what you're saying, because it's excellent. There is evidence. Okay, there's all kinds of footprint castings, all kinds of audio. People say, "Where's the video? Where's it's always blurry?" No, I've seen lots of videos that are really good, and for years they show up online and then they're gone. I don't know where they go. And I'm not a conspiracy guy, but there are lots of videos that were out there that you see from time to time, and there are lots of folks that are set up to say and discredit any video that comes out, that it's not, and then it goes away. I don't know where it all goes. And then somebody out there is listening to this right now and said, "Okay, where's the body?" And I'm here to say, how do you know there isn't body or bodies that have been accumulated into private or governmental research and or locked away? How do we know there isn't?
Yeah, you hit a nerve right there. I'm a huge conspiracy guy. I was in the military. I know some of the crap that goes on. Okay. If half of the population knew what was on the road on these tractor and trailers, they would be petrified. That's all I'm going to say. Okay.
That's good. That's great.
At times in my military career, I've had both a secret and a top secret security clearance. There's some spooky stuff on the roads, people. You just don't know.
That's great.
So, and too, that's the thing too. I get that question a whole lot. And like I said, I'm a simple guy. Where's the body at?
Yeah.
I've never seen one. Okay. My thing is, and this is what I hit them with all the time. So, do you spend a lot of time in the woods? Yeah, I'm a hunter. I've hunted my whole life. How many skunks have you seen in the woods?
Yeah.
You don't get a lot. People will say, "Oh, well, I've seen one." Yeah. There's millions of them things. You'll see them dead on the road everywhere.
Yep.
Rarely will you see one in the woods.
Right.
Okay. Because that skunk is camouflaged. It is used to that environment and everything else. So it's the same thing with Bigfoot.
Yep.
It has a natural camouflage, just like every other animal that lives in the woods.
Right.
And it knows how to use it.
Sure it does.
And it's incredible the amount of people that say, "Well, it can't exist. I've never seen one."
Right.
You spend 90% of your time sitting on the couch. I know you've never seen one.
Right. There's, and I don't want to discount interest, because I think Bigfoot has more interest from the general populace now than ever, which is great. I mean, I go back 15 years ago. I'd go out and talk to people about it, and some people would, I still have people to say I follow up, and I follow up on reports, and they won't talk. They'll put a report in, but they won't follow up on it. You say you're an investigator looking into this, and they get scared. They don't want to. I think it's good that people are talking about this like it's a real thing. Look, we have festivals. I speak in front of people all the time, these kinds of things. That's great. We have festivals and shows, and people are talking about it now, which is great. I love all that. But to just go right in, if somebody is just looking at this in their laptop and coming up with their own theories and conspiracies on it, that's not going to go anywhere. There's a lot of garbage in the laptop, a lot of garbage online about this, really. I think I always tell people, just try to keep an open mind on this and accept it for what it is. It's going to come out in its own at some point, somehow. Heck, it already is pretty much. People acknowledge there's Bigfoot or have a general knowledge. I saw some poll recently on what percentage of the population believes in Bigfoot. It's over 50 now.
Yeah.
And that was great. I was really happy to see that. I was like, well, that's great. If you brought that up 20 years ago, oh, I can't even think. Come on, And every local news station has been told to, it's a comic relief type thing. Put it in the last 5 minutes of the show. Ha, ha, ha. So that's where it is. That's where it's cataloged. And there's probably reasons for that. But, long term, this isn't going away, because it hasn't gone away for eons, to your point. People have been seeing and experiencing. There are giants. People have, these things are of gargantuan size and capability, and there are lots of them. I started out thinking maybe it's a undiscovered primate in the woods kind of thing. There's lots of these things out there. We're a bunch of amateur researchers. We're walking around in the woods with red headlamps on and Tascam recorders and parabolics and doing knocks once in a while. And we run into these things. We have experiences. We're talking about them here. We're commonly talking about things like massive red eye shine looking at you, or white, or seeing an orb floating around. Or 2 weeks ago, I was out on one of these things. I had a massive tree thrown through the woods. The group I was on landed, I don't know, I would say within 100 feet of it. I mean, massive. It was so loud, we had another group 100 yards away. They heard it. I went back, tried to replicate it with a rock thrown through the woods. I couldn't throw a rock big enough to come anywhere near it. Scared the snot out of all of us. It really happened. I know there was no human there in the woods, or no creature that could have done that. And this tree was thrown, right? Because it was crashing through the woods near it. Okay? It's an experience. I walk right out. I was a little scared at the time. I'm talking to you about it now. Was it life-changing? No, I've had it happen to me before. Do I know what did it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure what did it.
Yeah. I'm going to ask this one, and I ask a lot of guests this, and I get different responses. What are your thoughts on aggression? And I'm just going to say, throwing a large tree, that's not a passive act.
Right. So I think they can get aggressive with you, and I pay attention to it. Number one, with aggression, when it's perceived as aggression, if I'm in a group, we all look at each other and we go, that was meant for us to get out of here. We pay attention to it and go. We'll say to them, all right, we irritated you. We're sorry. We're going to shut off our lights. We're going to walk single file and go, get out of this trail. Now, maybe there was a reason for it. I'll give you a quick story on aggression. I'm with two other guys years ago in Northeast Iowa on an expedition. We get to an area where on one of those, red gates that are on a trail back in the woods, and we're hanging there. And one of the people in my group, I haven't seen this guy in years, does ex-military, but he has this excruciatingly loud scream whoop type thing. And we get a response 100 yards directly in front of me. And I'm lead in the group. He's back behind me, and he does it. And this thing screams bloody murder at me, loud and female. Within a couple seconds, it's half the distance now. It's 50 yards, maybe 50 yards. It's screaming at me again. I mean, it's melting our ears. Quickly, it's 20 yards away. It's in front. I still can't see it. All I can hear, and it's screaming, female scream aggressively at me. And what do we do? I said, and I looked at the other two guys. I said, pack it up and we're out of here, and we're leaving. We waving our arms going. We could hear it thrashing around through the woods as we went back to my vehicle. Was about a half mile away, and we had to take a 90-degree elbow on a gravel road to get to it. This thing headed us off at the pass. We got there, it was up above us, crashing trees on a rock chasm up above us. That's aggressive behavior. It wanted us out of there. We acknowledged it and we left. I've stepped off of trails in the woods when we've had activity to urinate in the past, and these things come crashing through and bluff charge me. All right, you don't want me peeing in your woods. Okay, or I get it, Well, I think when so I'm telling you these stories only because to answer your question, and I know it's a long answer, when they do something, you get from them what you give. If you're aggressive, they could be aggressive back. But they're aggressive to you and you don't know you're being aggressive and you're just in their living room, to use your analogy before, you got to get the hell out of there. I pay attention to it. If they get aggressive to you, you leave. But there's times when they have done things aggressively to scare people in the group. And I've literally gone in the woods and yelled at them. What the hell are you doing? We're not doing anything to rain on your parade. You shouldn't be doing it. She's scared. Why did you do it? And it will calm down. They'll zap people. We didn't talk about infrasound and getting zapped. I got zapped about a month ago, but we didn't talk about any of that. That's aggressive behavior. But when they're doing that kind of thing and it's unwarranted, like we haven't done anything to poke the bear, then I think you're entitled to say, knock it off. And I've yelled at the wood, what are you doing? And it will calm down. It's crazy. It'll calm down. So, you don't know why they're doing it, but they're not all the same, all character. Maybe we're just having a bad day. And here you are out in the woods and you show up, maybe you're in a situation where that was screaming was happening to me. We went back next day and cast 13.5-inch prints there. I think it was a female screaming at me and probably had a child, probably had a baby or was trying to take care of. The footprint cast the size would mean it's about a 6-foot tall creature. That was screaming at me so loud and so powerfully, it shook my body. That's aggressive, but there was probably a reason behind it. Mm-hmm. So I think aggression, if you get it from them, there's typically a reason behind it. But who knows? You could just have somebody who's pissed off, or some kids just yelling at you just for the hell of it to make you. Let's make these humans jump around. Who knows?
I know, like in my own personal research, and I'm not going to say every rock throwing incident, but if you're in an incident where you have rocks being thrown at you and they're close,
right,
it's time to back up. That, in my opinion, is the least form of aggression that you're going to get. And if you tried to advance on that, it's only going to escalate from there.
I agree.
I had a really interesting throwing incident happen one time. I'm a woodsman, so I carry things with me. I have ways of making fire, water. I take some food with me, survival type things. And we was just one area. There was 3 of us. And we were sitting there. And I ate an apple. And, it's an apple. It's a pretty natural thing. So I ate my apple and I throw the apple core into the bush out in front of us. And, I'll probably get some hate for that later on, but it's an apple core. Things will eat it. It's natural.
Right.
So
sure.
I'm sitting there with these other 2 guys, and we're kind of low talking, not a whole lot being going on. Well, something got thrown back at us. Now it's dark. We can't see what it was. So we start discussing what we should do. And, I'm like, well, maybe, we'll give it a little bit, let things kind of settle back down to, whatever. And we'll cut the lights on and look and see what was thrown at us. And if there's a rock there that's different than what it was when we come in here, we'll know that rock was what was thrown at us.
Right.
So there might be some touch DNA or something like that on it. That would be great.
Mm-hmm.
So, we let that go by for a minute, and we clicked the lights on, and there is the apple core that I threw into the bush.
That's great.
It put back at me. Yeah, that was probably the coolest throwing incident I've ever had.
Oh,
and
that's wonderful.
It really spooked one guy that was with us. He's like, "Dude, I'm out of here."
But that's an intelligent act. Okay. That's having a little fun at your expense. That's an intelligent act, Any animal would have eaten a damn apple core. They picked up and tossed it back.
Yeah.
That's great. I love that. That's a great story.
I throw it at them, they're going to throw it back. I got another question here. Rick, I'm seeking an answer that pertains to something affecting me in the Cascades. Can you share with us exactly what you physically experienced when you said zapped?
Yeah, I can. I've been out in the woods doing this for as long as I have, 16 years. I've run into this. At first, I was on an expedition back in like 2011 or 12, and a woman in the group got zapped and was nauseous, and there was an investigator there attending to her, and I was like, "What the heck have I got into? What is this?" Because it scared me a lot. Since then, I've had situations where I've been around these things and I've experienced being zapped. I've had it feel like electricity going through me. Like I've told this before to people, like you put a screwdriver in a light socket. It really electrified me. I've had it feel like a heavy weight being pushed down on my shoulders, like crawling down my neck and heaviness. I've had it feel like cold, really, really cold and chilled, like I was freezing. I've heard other people relate a cold feeling or an overwhelming temperature drop, like heavy, got really, really cold, or heaviness, a very heavy feel. Fight or flight. It starts with that. If you got the fight or flight feeling, it can start with, hey, something watching me, even daytime, something watching me. But then when the fight or flight takes over and all of a sudden you feel like, I got to get out of here, that's when they're turning the dial up on this. So it's infrasound, and large predators can do it. You can track it. You can see it on Audacity or SoundCloud. You can see where it tracks. It's a low frequency thing. But when they turn it up and those modulating bands, amplitude gets quicker and tighter together, you start to get this. It will unnerve you because it's shaking your inner organs, your brain, it's shaking things, and it's alerting you that something's wrong. Your homeostasis is off, and you got to get the hell out of there. And that, when it happens, I go. If you're feeling that, if it starts with the fight or flight and you're getting this heaviness feeling or cold type chill, I had woman in the group I was with 3 weeks ago on an expedition in South Carolina, and she got it, and she said she was seeing like flashes of white light around her perimeter vision when it was happening. So it can affect people differently, I guess is what I'm going to say. But common to all of it is unnerving feeling, fight or flight, and it starts with that.
I'm going to hop in there a little bit on that too, Rick, if you don't care. I have a little bit of different opinion, and I kind of think people use the term zapped, and people think it's a directional thing. I think infrasound is kind of like you said, it's a broad spectrum. I think the animal does project it, and I think you have to be sensitive to it,
right,
in order for it to happen. And the reason that I say that is you will have 3 or 4 people in a group, and you have one person that has this, feeling or whatever. It doesn't necessarily mean that person, and this is nobody knows exactly. You know what I'm saying? I don't have Sasquatch tied up down in the barn that I go down there and talk to him. So, and this is just kind of my own theory on studying sound and things like that. But animals will project this infrasound. And if there is something that, especially big cats, tigers use it a lot. So they will project this sound at a group of prey animals. And if one of those animals is susceptible to the sound, it will become disoriented and make it easier to be preyed upon. Now, that's the feeling that you're getting, the disorientation. The the low frequency sound is vibrating, all the stuff in your inner ears, your internal organs, and everything else. I don't think that I am susceptible to infrasound because I've suffered a lot of hearing loss with my military time, and I don't think I'm as susceptible to it. I have been in situations where someone has said, "Oh my God, I feel sick to my stomach. I feel like crap. I'm dizzy, blah, blah, blah." I feel absolutely nothing. And in the same respects too, we had a scream, and it was like an Ohio howl. And the duration was phenomenal. I mean, it was like 20 seconds at least.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was. And I mean, the set of lungs it would take to do this call, with the intensity and the volume and the duration of this call, was phenomenal. It had huge lungs. And see, that's another thing too. I felt like my guts were shaking. I'll just throw it out there and, country lingo. I felt my gut shaking. Now, that could have been from the actual, volume or anything else. It could have been an infrasound reaction. I suffer with PTSD. It could have been a PTSD reaction. There's all these different things, and I can't really say yes or no, it was one or the other. But I have seen people that have been susceptible to infrasound. And just like you said, the flight or fight thing. And I've even heard it described too as almost like having poltergeist activity, where they had, they visualized, what do they call it? Visual hallucinations. I'm sorry. They had hallucinations. They saw things that weren't there. They experienced things that they lost time.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible stuff. But infrasound is a really strange subject.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not 100% sure exactly what Bigfoot is using it for, what Sasquatch uses it for, whether it's a prey thing, whether like it's a warning thing, or what. It's fascinating. What are your thoughts on it? Why do you think Sasquatch uses that infrasound?
Well, I definitely think it's a warning thing. They can immobilize prey, or they use it for prey. I mean, I have been in the presence of Sasquatch and seen deer with the deer in a headlight thing, like deer could not even move in the vicinity. Like the deer, you could walk up and touch it. It was so, I've seen that. So I do think there is an immobilization thing. Maybe they use it for prey, for hunting. Let's face it, they hunt deer, again, for the internal organs. But if they want us out of an area and they can do it, they'll do it. If it is a low frequency hum, I've heard the tiger. I was in Tampa Zoo once and heard the tiger thing go off like that. You could hear it for a quarter mile. I mean, it was everywhere. I mean, and you could feel it reverberate through it. So, in the case of Sasquatch, you're not hearing them. You're not hearing a noise necessarily, but you're feeling this. And if they can do it, make you unnerved and get you out of an area, why not? I would do it if I want people to get away from me and leave me the hell alone. What are these people doing out here at 1 a.m? This is where I usually go out and do my hunting, or they're, walking on a trail that I usually use at this time of night. I don't want them here. I'll do it. So I think it's a warning thing as much as anything. I really do. The eye glow or the eye shine type thing, to me, that's almost like an interest thing. All of a sudden they go on and they get excited with what you're doing. That's my experience with that. When I've seen that, it's observing or it's interested. They'll like peek and really look at you. Kind of thing. So I've seen it, where there are two and then there's one, they turn and they turn back. I've seen them blink. I've seen all that. So, I think when they're using that, they're interested in something. So I would agree with you on the infrasound. One other thing too, people digest it or perceive it or pick it up differently. Some people's antennas are way up and others are not for whatever reason. And some are probably more sensitive to it than others, that kind of thing. But it definitely exists. And I think these things are intentional when they have a capability, whether it's mimicry or it's, the ability to make their eyes really shine or light up or use an orb to distract or to observe, or they have the ability to do different things. They're gonna do it and use it, and we can't understand that. But we've experienced, again, we're amateur researchers out there, and we're coming back with these, and we're having the same type of experiences, whether it's West Coast, East Coast, or wherever we are, and we're talking about them on great shows like this. You get a chance to be able to compare, and we're having the same type of experiences, but you can't explain them. So these things have great abilities that we don't.
I think something you brought up a good point right there. Like one of the key elements in the scientific method, and that's what everybody talks about. Let's use the scientific method. And 90% of the people that I hear say let's use the scientific method are not using the scientific method.
Right.
But one of the things is repeatability. Okay. And there is so much stuff, stick structures.
Yeah.
Incredibly everywhere you go, every encounter, blah, 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 whatever. Eye shine, eye glow, whatever you want to call it. I don't have an explanation for it other than I don't know if it's really like they're projecting light or if it's eye shine, where they have really good night vision. I can't think of the name of the membrane now that causes that. But anyway, that every Bigfoot sighting, has you hear that. And I'm not going to say every Bigfoot sighting. It's kind of, it's like the smell. I've never smelled the Bigfoot smell. And I was really close to the one in my sighting. Probably about 3 feet, if you want to know the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Never smelled it. Mm-hmm. Some people say this intense wet dog, hot garbage smell, blah, 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 whatever. I think, when you come across these things that are repeatable, the stick structures, all this stuff, that really adds some credibility to what we're talking about. And it's wonderful when you got two people that can sit down and talk about it sensibly and agree on things and disagree on things and still have the information out there.
Right.
That's I think it's a great thing. and we don't have enough of that in the Bigfoot community.
I agree.
A lot of stuff in the Bigfoot community is, oh well, I hate this group, oh well, I hate that group. I don't have any time for that.
No, me
Myself.
either. No,
I want on this show, I want people that are relevant. I don't care what camp you're in, whether you're an animal guy, whether you're a spiritual guy, or whatever. If you've got good information, I want it. I want to know about
right.
it, and I want the people that listen to this show to know about it. Rick, we've been
So
talking for 2 hours.
Well, I know it goes fast, but we're relating similar experiences and acknowledging, hey, that does happen.
Mhm.
So whether it's the orb, or I have smelled the Bigfoot thing, and I could just go into that for 10 minutes too. But we're talking about similar things: the zapping, the infrasound. People are asking questions about, the same type of things are happening. There's a whole set of characteristics, not beliefs, characteristics that have been experienced with these things over time that are the same.
And a lot of it gets overlooked. It gets overlooked by mainstream science because it doesn't fit into the little box that they've got prepared for it. And I'm just going to be honest with you. You're a really intelligent guy. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Well, thank you.
The people that you get a lot of, TV reports from are, God, I hate to say this because I'm a hillbilly redneck, whatever you want to call it myself, but the 3-tooth guy that hasn't bathed in 6 weeks. And, it's the same thing with tornadoes. Every time there's a tornado come through, everybody knows that one guy, he's on park.
I know.
And that's the same thing with Bigfoot. We have, we have bad interviews.
Right.
And that's always the one on the news. You don't hear somebody like Rick Reles, who's intelligent, well spoken, and stuff like that on the news. You've got Freddie Fender, that hasn't brushed his teeth since he was 8.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
What's
I do
the
know
problem?
what you mean. Well, it's because if there is somebody that was able to articulate it in a scientific manner, or with, there have been people, look at Meldrum, Scott Carpenter, God rest his soul, but people that did really look at this and take it, even the 911 books, all that or 411 books, all that kind of thing. There are people that do approach this scientifically, but I get back to, what's the way that stuff makes local headlines or local news? It's a page 10 article in the paper when it used to be newspaper. It's a joke. I did New York Post did an interview with me a couple of years ago and went into it. And I got to give the guy, he got a hold of me, did the interview, and he let me talk about that sighting in Colorado where the train saw this thing on the side of a hill. And that was, I told him right away, it's not Bigfoot. He goes, how do you know? I said, I've seen that suit being worn by people at festivals before. That's not a Bigfoot, but he asked some good questions. He put it in there. But right away in talking to me about it, you see, he was already pre-programmed to kind of joke around about it, And I just think that it's a curiosity type thing right now. It doesn't, you say, why isn't it approached with scientific method? And why aren't scientists picking it up? I'd have an answer for that. Money, money, money. There's no money for it. They're going to research things. They're going to research things they get grants for, or they get money for. There's no money behind any Bigfoot research out there. Not National Geographic puts a show on TV, or if it's on Animal Planet or something. Thank the Lord, you get some shows about this kind of thing, but it's a curiosity thing right now. It's not getting scientific research because there's no money to fund it coming from anywhere.
And that, man, that's a good point. That is a really good point. And that's the thing too. And another reason I think that we don't have a lot of scientists on board with it is exactly what you said. It's a money thing. Okay, they're taking their jobs and putting them on the line because of their belief in Bigfoot. Okay, you got somebody that's, like Dr. Jeff Meldrum. Thank God, the college that he worked for was accepting of what he was doing.
Right.
Okay. If it hadn't been, you'd have probably never heard from him again. Right. Because he would have lost his job. He would have lost all of his accreditations. He would have lost his credibility. And that's a lot. That's a lot for one person to put on the line.
Mm-hmm.
And until we can kind of get more mainstream with the subject, that's what we're going to face as a group. We're not going to have the scientific interest that we should. And I'm telling you, I would really like to know what I saw 20 years ago. I want to know what it is, where it came from. Thomas Steenberg, follow the facts. I want the facts. And I have been that way since I saw it. And, you know, it's a hard road. It really is. And I don't know if you
But
feel the same way, but it is. I've
well, it is. So, I often think it's a gift that keeps on giving because I just keep an open mind and research this. But I'm not trying to prove it to people. I know what I've seen. I know what I've experienced, smelled, felt, recorded, whatever. I know these things exist. I know there's lots of them. But I'm not gonna run around Main Street banging on a drum, telling the rest of the world they're fools because they don't believe in it,
mhm,
because that's not gonna get me anywhere. So, and there's been a lot of books written. I like doing podcasts like this and talking about it based on experience, and I continue to get out and do experience. Been on 2 expeditions in the last month, so and I'm relating based on experiences. I'm glad to talk about it because it gets airtime and it gets people who care about the subject matter listening to it from people that have acted like you and me who have actually experienced this stuff. Nothing
mhm.
wrong with that. Nobody can take that away from us. So, but mainstream science and all, challenging that, try to prove it. I don't think it gets you anywhere.
No, I really don't. But in the same respects too, just like I said, I'd like to, have it proven. Just like that one guy that told me to grow up, it doesn't exist. I can type him back and said, I told you. Well, Rick, we've been on here over 2 hours. I
Yes.
appreciate it. I want to give you an opportunity before we get off here to plug your business. I know Swatch, your SoundCloud thing, anything you got, Facebook, YouTube, whatever, let us know where we can find Rick Reles.
Well, yeah. So, first off, I'm a BFRO. It's one of my cards, BFRO member. And if you know people that have a sighting or whatever, BFRO.net, you can go online and you can right down to the county in the country see the vetted out reports of activity that have occurred. So that's a great database. And, there's expeditions listed on there. And I'm not here to do a promo piece for the BFRO, but it's a great place to go and collect your thoughts or learn about this phenomenon. So I would say that's number one. Number two is, yeah, I do have a business. I know Squatch, it's called, and we have an Etsy store. We're on, Etsy, Instagram, Facebook. We're on all that. You can go on out and find us. And we do post and talk about things, occurrences, etc. We got a lot of merchandise we sell too, and it's all original merchandise. I have a partner in the business, and we do our own depictions, original artwork, etc. T-shirts, hats, challenge coins, all sorts of things on there. Lots of fun. But, we try to depict it actually as people relate seeing it. We have, a number of trademarks at looking around a tree, that sort of thing. So take a look at that and see. And just on my own, I am a musician too, Just Rick. And I'm on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Deezer, wherever you get your music, anywhere I'm out there, you can look up Just Rick and hear my recordings. So not all Bigfoot. I have one that's a Bigfoot. That's called Wood Booger Walk. But I have other songs on there that I've written, all original stuff. I think I have one cover. But you can hear my stuff out there. I continue to publish. I got another song coming out in a few weeks. And I'm a gigging musician. I play music weekends in front of people all around and travel. I'm in a couple of duos, and I have a blast doing that. One's called The Right Fit. Another's called Two Step Two, and I play solo as Just Rick. But you can hear my music out there too. If you look up Just Rick, I'm on all the places you get your music, Apple Music, everything else. And give me a listen there. Wood Booger Walk is about Bigfoot. Have some fun listening to that. It's been used a lot. I think last I checked it, TikTok had used it over 100,000 times or something. So people are using it for different. I don't get anything for that, but whatever. I don't care. It's fun. But anyway, that's who I am, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I really do appreciate, Gary, you having me on here. And the 2 hours went fast. I had a blast talking with you. Thank you for the good questions. Thank you for the audience, and really thank you for the song. I got to get a copy of that.
Yeah, that is great.
That was terrific. Really did a really good job.
If you don't care, after I end the show, can you hang on and I'll get with you and get some information off of you?
All right, that'd be great.
All right, everybody. I appreciate everybody for watching. I want to give a little shout out here if I can get it. Oh, Lord, this computer. I hate this thing. I am not a technology guy. And it's going to take a minute here.
Well, and thank everybody for all the questions. It was great.
Marcus L. Whitt, thank you very much for the like on the show. I greatly appreciate it. I greatly appreciate everybody that's watched. And I just want you guys to know that this show is for you guys. It's not for me. Information is to be shared. That's what we're here for. Rick, I really appreciate you coming on. And I just want to tell everybody, come back and see us next week. We'll have another great guest. You guys enjoy yourselves. Have a great rest of your week. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye. Good night, everybody.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Sasquatch Watch Radio. We are incredibly grateful for our community. Because of you, we've surpassed 6,700 subscribers and continue to grow every day. Our mission here at SWR is simple: to provide a platform for honest, down-to-earth discussions about Bigfoot, free from drama and ridicule. If you've enjoyed the show, please help us spread the word. If you're interested in being a guest, you can reach us via our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, or by emailing us at sasquatchwatchradio@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube to access our full archive dating back to 2008 and to stay updated on all upcoming episodes. If you've had a sighting or an encounter you'd like to report, let us know. We have a network of researchers across the United States ready to assist. You can now find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. Please leave us a comment and let us know what topics you'd like to hear next. We'll see you next Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Until then, keep on squatching.